Let's do this. I don't know. What have I gotten myself into? Answering questions. Hey everybody, your friendly GM Bobby here with a new segment, series of videos. Do you just call it a show? Diary of a Game Master is a show. So this isn't like a separate show. It's called Ask Bobby. You see, when I do the YouTube videos here, I get a lot of comments asking me questions about like rules opinions that I have, or how do I like to handle this situation or that situation. Why not answer these questions live on video so everybody can get the benefit of my thoughts? The benefit of my thoughts. That's real humble of you there, Bobby. Before we get started in earnest today, I wanted to give a quick shout out to my longtime friend Aaron Johnson, who just started up a website and a YouTube channel called Malarkey TV. Head on over to malarkeytv.com. He has all sorts of really fun shows over there. One in particular, he reads instruction manuals from old NES and Super Nintendo games and stuff like that. And I think he's told me he's going to do an episode on reading through the old Shadowrun Super Nintendo game manual. And so that's going to be cool. Head on over to there. I'll have a link in the notes below. So I've got a list of questions here that I'm going to try to go through with you, and hopefully my answers aren't stupid. The questions today are coming from my patrons over at patreon.com/complexaction. If you become a patron, then you will have your questions get first dibs on my answering of them. I'm going to be trying to do this segment once a week. First question comes from Faster Nate, or Faster N8. I'm assuming that that's like leet speak for Nate. Faster Nate asks, how do I do good legwork? So I'm going to assume by good legwork you mean efficient legwork that doesn't take the entire 4-hour session, and legwork that gets you some information that is useful. So on the efficient side of things, most efficient way to do it is just to look at the people that are on your team and assign who is going to do what based on their specialty. This part is pretty common sense, right? If you have a magician, they're going to do the astral legwork. They're going to go to the scene, find out if there's any astral security. Are there spirits patrolling it? Are there wards or other kinds of magical barriers protecting the area? If you're the decker, then you're going to be doing the matrix legwork, checking the host to see how it's set up. But it could also mean going onto the matrix and doing more traditional legwork, like finding blueprints for the building, finding maps for the sites, finding dossiers or secret information on your targets. The decker is best suited to do those things. You don't want to leave out your Street Sam fighter types and your riggers either. They can go on site and look at physical security. What are the doors like? How many locks are there? What kind of physical security guards are there? But the other part of legwork is getting information from your contacts. You should never ever neglect your contact. An underworld shadow contact that can maybe get you some inside information on the illegal goings on. Maybe your gang member contacts or Johnson contacts have heard of rumors. Perhaps your mission is to go find a missing person. Well, law enforcement may have actually done some investigation ahead of time that you weren't aware of. Next question comes from Patreon patron Tom Rim. He asks, do you run your games on a grid or run with theater of the mind, and which do you prefer? For those of you who are like me and might not know some of the terminology, what Tom Rim is asking about is how you run combat. Do I like to create a battle grid with miniatures or something on a map to represent players in a real space? Or do I like to run a more narrative combat style where I just describe everything and rely on my players to imagine it themselves? Theater of the mind is my preferred style because it allows me as the GM the flexibility to change things on the fly in the middle of combat. And it lets my players affect the battlefield in ways that a predefined map would not allow them to affect the battlefield. Let me give you an example. So maybe my players have all gotten under cover and they're behind crates and everything, and one of my players has the cool, creative idea that they want to climb on top of the box and they want to grab a chain that is hanging from the ceiling and use it to swing over across the battlefield, firing his gun wildly at the people, and then jump behind another box to flank the enemies. That's a really cool idea, and I might not have thought about that. So I might not have imagined that there were chains hanging or boxes over there or something. But if my player tells me that's what they want to do, and that's the cool idea that they have, then I'm going to go with it. I'm going to say, yeah, heck yeah, there's some chains up there, and you can grab on and do that. Theater of the mind allows me the freedom to do that. So when you use a grid, you restrict yourselves in a lot of ways and don't allow yourselves that kind of flexibility and freedom. However, there are good reasons to use a grid. If you want to create a combat scenario for your players that emphasizes like tactical preparedness or tactical thinking, then a grid helps a lot with that. It keeps people honest, and everybody kind of has to be on the same page. The short answer to your question is that if I can help it, I prefer to do theater of the mind because it's so much more fun to imagine, and it's so much more flexible and allows everyone to kind of contribute to telling the story of that battle. Patreon patron Travis asks, care to wade into the quagmire that is technomancy in 5th edition? Nope. The last question I'm going to answer for the video is actually two people's question, and I'm going to combine them into one, and I'll explain why in a second after I read both of them. First question is from Patreon patron Brad Laney. He asks, I find myself perpetually getting grouped with all new players. I never feel like everyone is experienced enough of the story to stay interested because they move slowly. I don't know how to get them into the groove like my old vet groups. Without playing the game myself, I'm stumped. Do you have any personal experience with a situation like this? The next related question is from Patreon patron Mathzias. I'm gonna put the spelling right here, and you can pronounce it yourselves. He asks, same old, how do I get my players more invested into the system? Pathfinder, for example, seems a lot easier to get them into, but the learning curve for Shadowrun causes some issues. I gave them videos like yours to learn. Thanks, pal. Decent summary sheets and references during play, but it just seems to reinstate the fact that Shadowrun is just too difficult. On the other hand, they absolutely love the setting, and roleplay-wise, they seem a lot more invested. Can you please help? I've actually faced this problem before, and I handled it really poorly, so hopefully my failure is going to help me teach you guys what you should do. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law were both very inexperienced with role-playing games. My wife had played Shadowrun, but many years ago. So I gave them all the rules and the rule books, and I said, okay, you need to read this, and you probably need to read this, and make sure you read all of this stuff, and I'll walk you through the character creation process, and we're gonna make these awesome characters, and then we're gonna, over the course of, 2 days after the characters are made, I hope you didn't mess up, because now that is going to impact directly how successful you are in the game. And so they were already pretty terrified of the complexity of the rules. So we started playing the game, and I wanted to get every rule right, and every situation that came up, I looked up the rule for it. I had told them that our game session was going to take about 4 hours. It took about 8 hours, and we only got halfway through it. And then the second time we played it, it took like another 8 hours. So it took 4 times longer to play through this game session than I had promised them that it would take. And that kind of put them off to it. So the main thing I learned from that, and the advice that I can give to you, is just ignore the rules as much as you can. Now, I know that sounds crazy. At the core of Shadowrun, you're dealing with a D6 system. 5s and 6s are hits. The way you determine how many dice you roll is your skill level plus the related attribute, the linked attribute to that skill. That's the basics of the rule system. You have your basic success tests, where you're just trying to hit a threshold, and then you have your opposed tests, where you're just trying to get more than another person. That's basically Shadowrun. With that footing, you can do a lot with the game and just sit down and have fun. If they seem intimidated from the get-go by the system, don't have them make characters. Just show them the rulebook and have them look at the cool pictures in the archetype section at the end of character creation. Just have them pick one. They're gonna look at those pictures, and they're probably gonna find some that speak to them more than others, and they will want to be some of those characters. The characters have already been created, they've already been statted out, they've got gear and everything. Don't daunt them with character creation. So by setting it up that way, you've removed the complexity of the rules from the equation, and you're really gonna know if they're the type of people that would enjoy a game like Shadowrun. Thanks so much for your questions. This was so much fun. I had so much fun answering questions from you guys. Keep the questions coming. I'm going to try to do this on a weekly basis. The Ask Bobby segments will come out at the beginning of the week, where my other main stuff will come out at the end of the week. And let's keep it rolling. This is a lot of fun. Even though today I only answered patron questions, that is not always going to be the case. You can leave your questions below in the YouTube comments on the video, and I will try to get to your questions if there's time. Hopefully you guys had as much fun listening to the answers to my questions as I had answering the questions, and I hope to keep doing this in the future. Thanks again, and bye-bye. Man, that was great. So I decorated the place. It's a work in progress back here. I'd love to have some more. There's not a lot of Shadowrun decorations back there. I don't really have a lot of Shadowrun doobly-doos to put back here, but I got my coffee cup tower over here. It's not a tower, it's a pyramid. I need more decorations, for goodness sake. These are pictures of myself. I decorated my background here with pictures of me? With pictures of me? Talk about modesty.